I had a professor that said that trying to get naturopaths to agree on something is like trying to herd cats, which is very much like what it's like in the holistic space, right? The conventional space is very cut and dry. There's of course always an art form to healing, and different perspectives, but the conventional system it's run like the military. It's like you do certain things. There's like a protocol. There's a standard of care. In holistic medicine, it's really more like the Wild West. Right? So from the different dietary philosophies that people recommend, the different therapies, the different ways that people even see reality is like totally different. Um, so that became a whole nother challenge of trying to integrate, like where do I stand here? What's the truth? What path do I want to take? What I quickly realized is that most of the current naturopathic medicine that exists today is basically being like subsumed into the conventional model.
Welcome back to the Rooted in Resilience podcast. Today, Sarah and I are blessed to be joined by our friend, Dr. Alex Orton, who is in the pro-metabolic and bioenergetics space, but provides a very unique perspective because he has over 10 years of experience practicing naturopathic medicine as well. So he combines such a cool area where, homeopathy, energetics, pro-metabolic, there's many different angles that he takes into his practice. And it's been really cool to learn more about what they do at Haven Health. And so really excited to dive into some of the downfalls of current naturopathic medicine today, what Dr. Alex has taken from naturopathic medicine, what he doesn't follow in the standard naturopathic path today, and how he's incorporated teachings from Dr. Ray Peat, bioenergetics, but also homeopathy and other paths. So Dr. Alex Orton, or Alex, thanks for joining us today. We're excited for this combo. Do you want to start us off with how did you even get interested in health?
So it really came from a personal health issue that I was having. In college, I was definitely a rebel, doing a lot of drugs and alcohol, not sleeping, eating terrible food, and I totally decimated my health. Was having panic attacks, um, and and had no idea really anything about health that I could even change my health with what I was doing. It wasn't even like, which is crazy to think now that I wasn't aware that I could change the state of how I was feeling through my actions. Um, so I basically left college, went out to Colorado, where everyone is very into health out there, totally different from the Midwest. And that was when I first discovered that I could actually change what I was eating, meditate, get sunlight, sleep better, and actually change the way I was feeling, which was insane to me. Um, Found out about naturopathic medicine, which I also was never aware of until a year before I basically started school, um, and went through that program and was introduced to so many different types of therapies and philosophies. I had a naturopathic professor that said that trying to get naturopaths to agree on something is like trying to herd cats, which is very much like what it's like in the holistic space, right? The conventional space is very cut and dry. There's of course always an art form to healing, and different perspectives, but the conventional system it's run like the military. It's like you do certain things. There's like a protocol. There's a standard of care. In holistic medicine, it's really more like the Wild West, right? So from the different dietary philosophies that people recommend, the different therapies, the different ways that people even see reality is like totally different. So that became a whole nother challenge of trying to integrate, like where do I stand here? What's the truth? What path do I want to take? And what I quickly realized is that most of the current naturopathic medicine that exists today is basically being like subsumed into the conventional model. A lot of the naturopathic colleges they're just cutting like their homeopathic program and these old school naturopathic therapies and philosophies and trying to be accepted by the mainstream, both from like a licensing perspective and like getting funding for running studies that are very much run like classic pharma studies, and really losing the essence of what naturopathic medicine and holistic healing is all about. So that's kind of how, that's like my trajectory. We can of course go into any of that, but we started our practice, Haven Holistic Health, as like an antidote to what we were seeing, that the true philosophy was really being lost. Yeah.
I think let's just dive right in. Like what are the current downsides or potential problems that you see with current naturopathic medicine? Because I mean, I've seen it with many family members. I've personally experienced it where you think, okay, naturopathic doctor automatically means holistic health, which automatically means better than like traditional
Yes.
mainstream pharmaceutical. And I'm not saying, and I know that you guys aren't saying that all naturopathic doctors are bad. We're not saying that at all. But I have very vivid memories of going to various naturopathic doctors and getting lists of like 30 supplements to take.
Yep.
And that's when I think back to my experiences with them, that's what I remember. Like, oh wow, these are some expensive supplements that definitely aren't covered by insurance. And how do you know that things aren't conflicting with each other? Sarah, do you have any specific experiences with naturopathic doctors?
I think that what you said, Alex, about it being the Wild West is kind of how I see it because, yeah, I've been to many different naturopathic doctors over the years, and they'll all explain something a little bit differently, which is fine and makes sense because we all have our different backgrounds and viewpoints and opinions. But for the patient, that can become really overwhelming. Okay, that can become very overwhelming and confusing. And honestly, I feel like to an extent that feeds into the disconnection from the body and the overwhelm and the mystery that chronic health can become for somebody because if you're not working with somebody you trust and who has a very well-rounded approach, you are getting kind of just like a lot of different bandage type situation, a lot of different, like as she said, supplements thrown at you. Maybe they'll suggest more and more labs because they didn't get the answer the first time. So that was my personal experience, was just like, I felt like if the doctor I was working with had a toolbox, they were just kind of throwing different tools at me, whatever they thought would stick almost.
Yes.
And it didn't leave me feeling confident in my own body and my own healing. Whereas when I met with you, Alex, you were just very upfront about there's a lot of different pillars that contribute to health. We can't just look at nutrition. We can't just look at your supplements. We have to look at your relationships. We have to look at what you're doing day to day. And I feel like that has been the most comprehensive and comforting approach that I've ever been given because it's a lot more validating as opposed to just like, oh, I'll fix this with another supplement. I'm not saying supplements are bad, and I know you use supplements too. But yeah, that was my experience in the past. It wasn't truly a holistic approach because we weren't talking about what was going on in my mind. We weren't talking about my relationships, um, my habits, everything like that. And that's so important to health too. So yeah, although naturopathic medicine is supposed to be very holistic, I do feel like in the past, who I was working with, it was a lot more, like Ashley said, it was a lot of supplements, a lot of lab work and lab work and more lab work, and kind of just like throwing things at that, trying to fix it. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people would be able to resonate with the feeling of just kind of feeling overwhelmed and confused in the naturopathic space, especially on social media. So that is my personal experience with it. Whereas, Alex, can you share a little bit more about how you take the patient through their own healing journey and what that looks like at Haven Holistic Health?
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that second because I do want to address what both of you guys mentioned. Um, the phenomenon that I think is happening is that naturopathic medicine is turning into what we call functional medicine. Functional medicine is kind of like a bastardized version of holistic medicine that is basically like mainstreamed. And the idea is it's like it's taking the idea of conventional medicine where we're going to diagnose you with a problem based on your lab work and we're going to give you something to fix that, and then like adding some green wrapping paper to it. So instead of doing the standard diagnostic tests and giving you drugs, we're going to do more functional tests, which could mean thousands of dollars. Yeah, functional. It's like, how accurate are they? Could be thousands and thousands of dollars of tests. And then we're going to address those issues with mainly with supplements. Things are given lip service, like decreasing stress and exercising and sleep. And of course, everyone has their own kind of perspective on diet. But what ends up happening is you get a ton of supplements to address every single problem that you have. And that's treating the body like a machine. It's not it's not acknowledging that the body has its own healing capacity, that there's an intelligence there. That's the vital force. So instead of doing that, you're like tinkering with all of the little mechanisms and trying to get all the biochemical pathways optimized and make sure all of your levels are normal. So we call that, functional medicine, which a lot of people think like what I do or what we do is functional medicine. But we always try to differentiate, like, functional medicine is doing lots and lots of lab work and then taking lots of supplements to address the lab work, right? Another term for that is green allopathy. Allopathy is an old school term for like conventional medicine. So it's like green allopathy. It's the exact same philosophy as conventional medicine, that the body breaks and we need to fix it with stuff, versus what the true holistic philosophy is like vitalism. Like true naturopathic medicine is based on the idea of the vital force, that there's a life force that heals us that is beyond our control. It's God-given. It's like if you cut your arm, your body is going to mend it. If you break a bone, your body's going to mend it. You just have to put the bones back together and your body will mend it. It's the same with chronic illness. So the philosophy is completely different. It's like, we come from the assumption if there's an issue going on, it's not that the body is broken, it's that there's something obviously missing in the environment or the resources the body requires in order to heal itself, right? So with the functional medicine, conventional naturopathic, green allopathic, these are all like synonyms for the same thing. What ends up happening is you throw tomatoes at the wall to see what sticks, because you do a bunch of labs, you address those imbalances with supplements or whatever. The person comes back to you and says that didn't work, or that only worked 20%. So then you go back to the drawing board, you change the supplements, you run more labs, you try it again, and you try it again, and you try it again, because there's no underlying philosophy. Like correcting blood work and trying to get your levels normal and trying to optimize all your biochemical pathways with supplements is not a philosophy. Like if it is a philosophy, it's like your body's a machine, it breaks, and you've just brought it to like the body repair shop to get it tuned up. And everyone knows that that doesn't work.
Well,
Like
it works if you bring your car to the repair shop every single day.
right. You can kind of hold things up for a while, but it's not a long-term, sustainable, practical solution. So now to get to your question of like, what's our philosophy?
Wait, real
Yeah.
quick. On that, would you say, here's a thought that's coming to my head about your, like the missing philosophy, the missing piece. Would you say that in functional medicine, in many modern naturopathic medicine, is they miss the energy piece? Like if you aren't producing sufficient energy in the body can't heal itself. Where, like, you can't just give the body herbs or micronutrients. The body also has to have the energy to be able to address it. And instead, they're just isolating symptoms and herbs and supplements as opposed to the energetic piece. That's kind of like a missing piece in the philosophy.
Absolutely. I think it's very helpful to think of health as energy and disease as a lack of energy.
Yeah.
But it's also important to understand if you really trust in vitalism and you believe in vitalism and you believe in the vital force and you believe that God has given us everything that we need to heal, it's not like we're creating that energy. We're just supporting what the body already can do on its own. So we're creating an environment and we're giving the body the resources in order for it to do what it does naturally. But what that ultimately leads to is supporting the body's own energetic capacity. And yeah, I think that's like part and parcel with healing. It's like you have to have enough energy. You can call that a lot of different things. You can call it mitochondrial energy. You could call it metabolic energy. You could call it vital, like life force energy. But you have to have enough energy flowing through the system in order to heal and be healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. And quickly on this topic of like supplements and lab work, it's not on it's not just on the naturopathic doctors or the functional doctors. It's on the patient a little bit too, because we all have to admit there's some point of our journey where we are just looking for the quick solution. And many times that is taking another supplement and putting all of our faith in another supplement.
Yes.
So you said that, you know, relaxing, sleeping more, exercise, diet gets lip time. There's good intentions behind that. It's not as if these functional medicine doctors and these naturopathics don't believe in that or don't see that part too. But a lot of times the patient isn't really going to make those changes or know how to make those changes or want to put stock in making those changes because we are at the surface level still looking for that immediate quick solution. I think you only get to the point where you become fed up with that once you've been suffering for a certain amount of time. And a lot of times that's where chronic illness survivors come into play and they need something different. So yeah, Alex, let's hear about how you approach this at Haven Holistic Health.
So I'm sorry. It's so hard to like, because I want to respond to what you said because it's so relevant.
Just, let's just have a fluid conversation. Just
No,
respond to it and over time tell us what you do.
totally. And we're gonna get there because like what you said is super relevant. Okay. So what I feel is that we've all been propagandized to death with the conventional medical model. Like all of us have grown up completely embedded in conventional medicine. And um and I'm not saying that we're all victims to it, but it's just important to understand the context culturally that we all grew up in because that's what we know. Now we probably got to that point culturally because of this exact phenomenon that you're describing. It's like pharmaceuticals are introduced in the 1900s and everyone's like, "Oh, I don't have to make any changes. I could just take something and my symptoms go away." That sounds amazing. Um, so you're right that I think that there's a tendency to like reach for quick fixes. And I see this a lot with like people that are, it's like shiny object syndrome. It's like this supplement's going to heal me. This new cool device is going to heal me. This protocol is going to heal me. And I think that people do that because they don't really understand the philosophy, right? So that we don't have the educational background to understand that like that doesn't work. That's not how healing happens because again, we didn't grow up in that culture. And we're not patient with it. So you're right. Like in the world that we live in, we want the quick fix. We want to like take something, get on with our day. I feel like what we're all experiencing in the modern age is just too much stress all the time. Our schedules are filled from morning to night. Like everyone's experiencing this. Everyone's distracted. There's not enough time. So like those quick fixes, obviously in that environment are very enticing. Right. So, but you're right. I think that everyone kind of goes through the journey where they come to the truth. And sometimes you have to be dragged through the mud to finally accept the truth, which is like nothing, not one single thing is going to help you to feel the way that you want to feel. It requires you to make changes, especially things that you don't want to change, like mental emotion, like relationships and old
Psycho-emotional.
patterns. And you have to be consistent with it every day. Like it's, I always joke that like you could have the perfect meal prepping and you're like, wow, this week is great. And then like Sunday happens and you're like, I have to meal prep again. Like it's not like something where you like master it and you're like, okay, meal prepping is done and mastered for my life now. It's like, no, every
One
Sunday you
time,
have
done.
yeah. So there's a consistency to it. There's change is required. The only way to change how you feel is change the conditions, right? You can't expect the same results if you're not changing the variables that led to the results. So that requires you to change. But I think an important thing that I had to learn was like, what's the truth? Like, because I really wanted the truth. I didn't want to do things that didn't work. Of course, there's elements of my suffering when I was dealing with health issues where it's like I was looking for that shiny object because I wanted the suffering to go away. But the bigger learning was actually coming to understand how healing works. And then once you really integrate that, like you can't close Pandora's box. You can't be ignorant again once you understand. So now like the fear around health and symptoms that I used to have is gone. Because if I'm experiencing symptoms, I know that there's a direct cause in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm living in my circumstances. It's not like I'm n equals one, I'm a mystery case that hopefully the technology develops where someone will save me one day, or there's some obscure protocol in some dark corner of the internet that I haven't found yet that's going to be the answer. It's like, it's none of that.
Just
It's
one more page on the repeat forum. Just one more page.
exactly. And like, look, I've been there and I've learned a lot from that process, but like what I've come to more and more and more as the years have gone on, and what I see with people I work with, it's like, I've seen people that have gone to tons of doctors, taken thousands of supplements, thousands of dollars of labs, and then I'll do it an intake and like, there's clear issues, simple, foundational, clear imbalances that were never talked about or never really addressed. So like, it's not a mystery. Diseases, it's really not a mystery. Things can get confusing because there's a lot of bad ideas out there. So you can like get caught up in social media and fall for these crazy philosophies and theories and end up hurting yourself by following some extreme thing that's not really in alignment with nature and truth. But like really it's not that complicated. It just requires you to do the right foundational things consistently over a long enough time horizon.
I think one thing that Sarah and I can resonate with here is our first exposure to conventional medicine was in our early 20s when we just didn't start feeling well, started getting Raynaud's, got lab work done, and the doctor just basically said, like, you're going to get lupus and there's nothing you can do about it. So
Yeah.
here's your stack of pharmaceutical drugs that'll help you manage your symptoms. And this kind of goes back to the conversation that I had with Georgie Dinkov recently on the whole view of cancer. That's a very hot topic, heated, debated, and no one's saying that we have the cure for cancer. But again, the mindset around cancer is okay, it's here and you're going to have to deal with it. It's chronic. Whereas if we take a step back and view this more like life force, vitality, metabolism, it's so much more hopeful because you're not doomed, you're not defective, you're not set up to deal with this chronic condition for life if you are willing to dedicate time, attention, and care to fixing day-to-day habits, environmental exposures, things you're doing every day to give the body the tools and resources that it needs to heal. It's just a complete different mindset shift that healing can happen. There is hope, and you aren't stuck with something for life, and you're not stuck with doing a very extensive supplement or pharmaceutical drug list. It's very freeing.
100%. I think another way to describe this dichotomy is vitalism versus genetic materialism, right?
Genetics.
Like the conventional medical system is basically, they're genetic materialists. Like everything can be brought down to your genetics. Like that's the goal, right? The goal is to find the genetic snip or the genetic problem with every single issue. And then the idea is that your genes are defective.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that. So now you have to be treated with pharmaceuticals for your life in order to fix that problem.
Yep.
So that's a very materialistic meaning like your genetic sequence is exactly what's going to happen. There's no environmental triggers. It's like it's written in
You're
stone.
stuck with your genes for life.
Correct. And the vitalistic perspective, instead of zooming in, we zoom out and see the forest for the trees and take into account the environment, which is what are you doing? What are you eating? The toxins you're exposed to? What are you thinking? How are you living? The being in alignment with the sun cycles and the seasonal cycles and all of that, which is not talked about for 1 second when you're in a conventional doctor's office, which is why with autoimmune conditions like Raynaud's, conventional medicine has no idea what to do with autoimmune issues because it's an environmental issue. Like fundamentally, like everything's an environmental issue, but autoimmune diseases are like really an environmental issue. And the only thing that they can do is suppress the immune system, which is literally just holding the symptoms down. Like if you had a big blow up beach ball, it'd be like holding it under the water. And as soon as you stop the drugs, the beach ball is going to fly out of the water and the symptoms are going to come back even worse. So that again, there's nothing that conventional medicine can do for environmental issues besides suppress the symptoms and then keep upping the dose to keep them suppressed, which drives them deeper into the body and then makes things worse. Because again, the body is intelligent. So it's expressing those symptoms as a compensation for the environment and for the foundation that's off. So what you're doing is you're pushing it down deeper, which then the body has to compensate even further, which then drives other issues because you're treating the body like a machine.
But don't worry, there's another pharmaceutical drug that can address your other symptom that pops up.
Well, and this is, this concept really helps to explain why everyone is so sick, because this starts when you're like right out of the womb. Like you have a rash, you get steroids, right? You have a fever, that's suppressed. Then you get asthma, that's suppressed. Then you get ADHD, that's suppressed. Then you get your period, that's suppressed. So like the entire trajectory of someone's life in the conventional medical model is just suppressing the vital force every possible way. And then you get autoimmune disease and you get cancer. So, and by the way, when you're suppressing the symptoms, so now you're not getting the message, which is the body's way of communicating to you. That's literally the language of the body. So now you're not getting the message. So now you're not changing the environment that's leading to the problem in the first place. So you're
Your body
suppressing
got
it.
canceled.
Yeah, you're suppressing the issue, which is making it worse, and then you're not addressing the actual cause. So it's like a 2-for-1, right?
Yeah.
And
I'd
that's how
love
we
to.
got to this place.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear your take on autoimmune illnesses. When you say a statement such as it's the environment, can we go in a little bit more on what you mean by that? What in the environment could be causing this? And then is it truly that the body is fighting itself, and the immune system's almost too strong, which just doesn't really make any sense, right? Instead, can you talk about how you see autoimmune, since it's so common? And I'm sure one out of every two of our listeners probably has been diagnosed in the past with some sort of autoimmune disease.
Totally. I'm not like a biochemistry guy. So like in terms of what's actually happening physiologically, why is the body attacking itself? All of that, like kind of, I think there's some really cool scientific theories about why that is that go beyond just the body is acting out and attacking itself, right? But this really gets into our philosophy in general. Like what are the underlying triggers, environmental factors that lead to disease in the first place? And our perspective is that the foundation of health consists of four main pillars to make it simple, to compartmentalize it. Detoxification, which is the toxins that are in our environment, we need to decrease. Like the amount of toxin exposure that we have, as you and most of the listeners understand, is way above and beyond anything that we evolved to experience, right? In every capacity of life. So that's totally unnatural. That overwhelms the body's detoxification pathways. And then, the body is designed to detoxify. There's endotoxin, there's toxins that are produced just from like the process of digestion and metabolic physiology. So we need to decrease the toxic load that we're experiencing and then optimize the detoxification pathways so that the body can deal with the toxins that it's being exposed to. So that's detoxification. Number two is nutrition. Very obvious. We need to get all the macro and micronutrients, calories, carbs, proteins, fats, and then all the vitamins and minerals for the body to function normally, which is a huge problem because of everything that your listeners know about the way the food is grown and processed and the shelf life and the chemical additives, all that. Number three is lifestyle, which is basically how you live every day, what you do from sun up to sundown, from your movement to the sunlight that you get, your routines, your sleep, your home environment. It's like, what do you do every day? What are your actions and behaviors? And in the modern world that we live in, since we live under artificial lights in houses with crazy schedules, that's totally abnormal as well. Just getting our circadian rhythm regulated to a natural place is like a huge challenge because of all of our jobs and the way that our life is constructed, living in homes and having artificial lights, just to name one issue. So we need to return to nature, return to the lifestyle conditions that are optimal for health. And then number four, which is the big one that everyone seems to miss, is mental emotional. And I think I'm like really, really impressed actually with where a lot of social media has gotten to in terms of understanding health. Like a lot of the health influencers that I follow are better than most conventional naturopathic doctors and functional medicine doctors because they understand sunlight, they understand movement, they understand toxins, Um, so at least in the circle that we're in, like people get that. People get that our modern world is really not conducive for health. And you need to go above and beyond to create the conditions to change the environment so that we can return to nature, return to what is physiologically appropriate for our bodies. But the fourth pillar, even in the most esoteric, advanced biohacking circles that I'm in, people don't recognize the mental emotional aspects of health and how chronic false beliefs about yourself because of the way that you were raised as a child and traumas that happened to you and repetitive experiences that you keep going through that then kind of like keep reinforcing what you believe about yourself. That has a huge impact on your overall health. And if you want to make it like physiologic, then you could talk about what happens with your nervous system being in that state all the time, even in a subtle way, the hormonal changes that happen with that. So like, I mean, if you imagine the physiological feeling that you have when you're emotional, and then you're running that in the background like all the time, it's like that can overwhelm the system more than almost any other factor as far as I'm concerned. Because you see the opposite, that when people address those things, like that's where like miracles happen like overnight. Miracles don't happen overnight when you change your diet. And they don't happen when you start avoiding toxins. They do happen when you change your mind. You could literally wake up and become a different person, you know? So as it relates to autoimmune, it always, as far as I'm concerned, it always goes back to those main factors. I think the two biggest factors with autoimmune that I see is detoxification. It's like the immune system is overwhelmed. I feel like people that have autoimmune conditions are like canaries in the coal mine. So they react much more dramatically to things than like the bell-shaped curve of the population. But we're all experiencing the same toxicity. But it's more important for those types of individuals to really be aware of their toxic exposure and detoxify the system. And then number two is the mental emotional pillar, which I see with every autoimmune patient or client that I work with. There's always some stress, false belief component that continues to drive their issue. And again, like it's so classic that I see someone that's done even like great things, even like bioenergetic, taking a bunch of supplements that are great, that are really clean, eating well, but like they're running on stress all the time and their relationships are poor. And it's like, it's not easy to solve that. Like it's a lot easier to solve a nutritional problem than to solve like a mental emotional relationship problem that started from childhood. Like, you know, but part of I think the healing process is becoming aware of all of the factors that are impacting your health and being honest about that, and then prioritizing your energy to addressing them. A
Yep.
lot of people just spend years avoiding things that they don't really want to look at by trying to, you know, like by trying to solve it, biohack it with diet, biohack it with protocols and supplements. And it's like, you know, you're doing enough there. Like that's not the bottleneck for you. The bottleneck now is this mental emotional issue that hasn't really been addressed. You've known it's there, you're aware of it, but things are too busy. You're focusing on too many other things. But like that has to be addressed. There's no supplement, there's no protocol, there's nothing that you can do with your lifestyle to change the way that you feel about yourself from past experiences, besides like looking at it directly and doing something about it, you know? So that's, I just think it's so important because like people need to hear that. You know, I think a lot of practitioners, they just want to make everything like physiologic and metabolic. And then they just never have that conversation. And it's like, you're not going to heal to your fullest capacity if you don't address that stuff.
So
I
I want to share a little bit of like personal thing here. Alex is really helping me. My word of the year is surrender. So for 2026, my word is surrender, and that was from Alex. And I think that that's like the final piece for me is this psycho-emotional side. And like I do so good with exercise, nutrition. I refuse to take long lists of supplements once I started adding those up and being like, wow, I'm spending what on supplements? No, I'm
Mhm.
done. Um, and I'm active, but I, for some reason, struggle with this concept of surrender. And so this is something that I'm working through on the psycho-emotional side, where it kind of goes back to accepting and embracing this vitality mindset. And
Yeah.
I would like for you to dive into that just a little bit more here, because I think we lose touch of that because conventional medicine, there's no hope, right? It's okay, you're stuck with this, take this supplement. And so you just like feel hopeless. So then flip to the other side, it's there's hope. You can change things. But that also comes with a dangerous mindset that I fully embraced, which is you can control things.
Right.
And I think I need to find more of the middle ground, and that's what I'm personally working on, is this surrender piece where I'm giving the body the tools that it needs. I'm putting in the work, but I need to stop trying to control and instead sit back, embrace, surrender, and trust that what's going to happen is what's supposed to happen. That's hard for me. Like, if I'm being real, it's hard for me. And so I am trying to really embrace this like vitality piece and surrender piece that I personally have missed because I was on the hopeless side. And then, pendulum swing. Okay, I can control everything and I can dictate the outcomes. Whereas that actually increases stress over time. And so now let's, find this middle ground where you're doing the things. It's not like you're becoming a hobo or like not working, not pursuing your dreams, not doing amazing, awesome things in life, but surrendering. So can you talk a little bit on how like surrender, vitality, and where you see that fitting into this healing process for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think you totally nailed it. Again, it goes back to the idea of the vital force. That is not something that we're in control of. That is
It
something
sounds
that
like Star Wars lightsaber. That Star Wars, like, like it's a bizarre concept for me.
aha. The life force. I'm sorry.
Life
I thought you
force.
were talking about Sarah, like the background noise in
Oh,
Sarah's
well, Sarah's
microphone.
bird is
Sorry, that's my
attacking.
bird. That's my
Okay.
bird. I've been trying to mute myself.
Pip the bird is shy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Really
Showing
quickly on
herself.
this, it's funny because when Ashley's talking, like she's saying like control life force, like she has this very set personality type and like tendencies, whereas I'm like on the other side of the pendulum. So I'm like, oh, I don't really see it that way. But that's the thing with everybody is like we all have our own little way of absorbing information and experiencing the world. And you really have to figure that out for yourself in order to get to this point that you're talking about, like understanding your emotions, your relationships and stuff. Because if you don't, or like you mentioned, like you're reliving things that happened in the past traumas, past relationships, you're still trying to figure those things out. Because that's where you can get very stuck. Like it could even manifest to let's take Ash's example of control. So, like, maybe you were maybe in some way you had no control of your childhood. You had erratic parents or something. So now, as an adult, like, you do try to control every single thing in your life. So that looks like for you taking your supplements at this time exactly. And when you can't do that, you could spiral out and feel like just completely out of your body experience and like all the physiological things going on. Like even if you just think of like um take sex for example, the thought of that causes a physiological response in your body. The same thing happens when you in this example like you can't take your supplements. So you start freaking out and something bad's going to happen. Like every thought that you have has a direct response on your body. So if you are out of touch with that and you don't know what's happening in your own situation, you're just so into the day-to-day routines, that manifests into something huge inside of you over time. And
yes.
it's really hard to get out of that if like you said, Alex, nobody's talking about this. Nobody's identifying this for themselves and actually doing something to correct it. So yeah, I think the whole idea of vitality and surrendering could probably apply to most people. And Ashley wanted you to expand on that a little bit.
So I want to I want to pin down this idea of the vital force because I
Yeah.
don't think I'm not trying to say it as like this woo woo concept.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's like it's easily observable. So if you get a cut, you don't heal that cut, right? Your body heals that cut. And where did that intelligence and that ordering principle come from? It's like you don't make your heart beat. You don't make your thyroid release thyroid hormone. These are things that are God-given, built into your system that happen spontaneously. And you can expand this out to the larger universe that things happen in an orderly way. I'm sure we've all experienced, like a synchronicity that happens. how do you explain that? This is very like much a Carl Jungian thing, like the collective unconscious or whatever. There's a order to nature. It's like like law is built into the fabric of reality. And I would say that comes from God. And as time is going on, I'm becoming more and more spiritual and more religious, because you can't control that and you can't explain that. You can't explain how you can have sex with someone that you love and then they grow a baby and a baby comes out and then a year later they're running around like hugging you. You can't explain that. And you can try to explain it, but there's some incredible mysterious force that's taking play there. So to me, like really embodying the idea of vitalism and like the life force is surrendering to that thing, right? It's like it's trust. It's trusting that your body is going to take care of it, that God is going to take care of it. Now, that doesn't mean, to the point that you made, Ashley, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. It's not a passive process. You still have to meet God halfway. It's like what is it? Michelangelo, the mural
Yes.
with the finger and
Yep.
I thought you were doing
um,
ET.
E.T. phone
yeah,
home.
no, it's like the finger and then
The
like,
Michelangelo. Yeah.
yeah. Um, you have to put yourself in a position
Yeah.
for God to work through you. And you need to, take responsibility. And we all have free will. Like, I think God gave us free will so that we can make choices and we can create the life that we want.
Yeah.
So we have to put ourselves in the position, but then God does the healing, or nature does the healing, or the body does the healing. So we don't have to micromanage the healing. Right. I think that's like the difference. It's like, if you put yourself in the right environment, then that's going to take care of itself. But a lot of people go too far. They try to control everything, and that doesn't work. And to your point, Sarah, it's probably coming from a mental, emotional belief that you need to do that in order to be okay. And you can't trust that that things are gonna work themselves out or be taken care of. If every time we're hurt by something and things don't work out the way we want, then we get a little bit more defensive and we live in a little bit more fear, and then we want to control things. But the ultimate, I think, place to get to is to ultimately surrender to what God wants us to do,
On
Yep.
that, you see so many different, or I guess this is what I've been seeing lately because it's relevant to me, but there's a lot of stories of women who they're trying to get pregnant for months or years, and it's only when they surrender and give it to God and say, or, when we say God, whoever, whatever you believe in, but they let go of this timeline or that they have any say in when this is going to happen, that like the next month when they do that, they finally conceive.
Yep.
And I mean, yes, there's some miraculous force going on, but at the same time, allowing yourself to do that after years of trying to force something or control something changes the way that your body is reacting and responding on a physiological level. Your hormones are going to be different. Maybe your pelvic area softens. There's so many different things that your body's always listening.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I didn't get to talk and hear about this idea of surrendering, but I think that's a beautiful thing for a lot of people's health issues too. And obviously, like you said, meeting halfway and doing all the different things. You talked about the environment component. We have to have the nutrition. We have to have the detox on par. But yeah, I feel like we're really highlighting this number 4 in your
Yes.
your process so much because almost all of us have done so many different things with nutrition, or we've done a lot of different detox things, but almost none of us have tackled the mental emotional side. So I just love so much that that's a huge part of your practice. And it's not, the messy thing is it's not even something that you can do for me or that you can do for your clients necessarily. You can work and talk through things and be a safe place for them and spark ideas for them. But that is something that each individual actually has to do on their own. And
Yeah.
or with like a therapist if they want to go talk to somebody or do like somatics. But that is the hardest part because you have to actually radically change something or let something go or, feel out of control for the first time in so many different years. So that's also actually just to let you know, I'm also working on my own version of that. And I think that that
I
is
think it's helpful to know that everyone has
yeah,
something to work on,
everyone.
right? Like,
I'm sure Alex could say the same thing in some way, shape, or form. He's still got something that he's working on. But here's the thing, that doesn't mean any of us are broken. That's
exactly.
okay. Like I think that's part of life at this point.
It's a part of trying to navigate how to live in the modern world because this is all new, right? Like we're all trying to figure
Yeah.
out how to make sure our biology runs well in an environment that isn't designed for our biology.
Yeah.
And that's
So
complicated.
we did, for some context, Ashley and I did have a intro call each with Alex. So we did what's your package that you have where
We basically call it like health consulting. We have different,
health consulting?
different amounts of time that we'll work with people. But yeah,
And I
Yeah.
I was really
So
interested in the lab work discussion that you told us about because it's different than what I've seen. And I know we poo-pooed lab work earlier on in this conversation, but like there's certain baseline things that you should check off, right? Because the body can't have this life force, this vitality, this energy producing capabilities if certain baseline fundamental needs aren't met. And so that's like an important thing to just check. Like, okay, does your lab work look good? Okay, let's move on to the next pillar. Can you touch a little bit on how your
yeah, what are
lab work
different things that you're
ranges
checking? What
are
did you do for
different?
I mean, actually, I think it's important at this point. He just goes over like the different everything that he was able to do for us. So yeah, you did lab work, but you also did the food intolerance. So what are all the different tools in your toolbox that you're able to help somebody assess their health?
yeah. And just to, you know, emphasize the point that you're making, Ashley. Again, I'm not trying to say that everything is mental emotional because there's a lot of practitioners out there where they make every single thing that happens to you mental emotional, and then you look at your vitamin D and it's a 10, and it's like, yeah, no wonder why you feel terrible, So it's not a denial of the material world. It's just having all those components in. And I think that that's how you get good results, is because you address the most important fundamental factors and you don't leave anything out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, anytime we work with someone, we always do what we call like a metabolic health panel or blood panel. It's nothing crazy. It's a lot of standard blood tests, including some of the, pro-metabolic markers that are not like as standard, like parathyroid hormone and prolactin, reverse T3, things like that. But we give importance to certain things and we analyze it a certain way. So my experience with blood work is that a lot of the standard ranges are way too wide. Everyone knows this with TSH, right? With thyroid, the TSH range is very, very wide. So you could have a TSH of 4.5 and sometimes be in the upper range of normal, which is like severe hypothyroid, right? That's the case with a lot of other ranges too. Um, we see that a lot with vitamins and minerals. Like a lot of like vitamin D is another good example. Like many people are walking around with a 25 vitamin D, and that's normal on a standard range, and they think that they're fine. But really, it should be up to 50. That's where all the physiological magic happens. So I think it's important to have the right range so that you're really seeing the complete picture of what's degenerating before you get to a point where it's like you're in a bad situation. And then you also want to prioritize, what are the most important factors? And as far as I'm concerned, vitamin and mineral deficiencies always have a huge priority compared to anything else. Because again, vitamins and minerals fall into that nutrition pillar. And as far as as I understand, you need all your vitamins and minerals for the body to function normally, like period. There's going to be dysfunction and compensation at various levels of the physiology in different organ systems, in your hormones, et cetera. If your body doesn't have enough of the building blocks in order to function, it creates like a bottleneck.
That just makes sense.
Yeah. So, when you look at someone's blood work, there's always going to be numerous things that are off, always, especially if you're looking at optimal ranges where you're going to be seeing more off than what a standard lab is going to catch. It doesn't mean that you have to, again, get into like a functional medicine mindset and address every single problem. When you address the foundation of health, that's going to help your digestion and your liver and your blood sugar and your hormones and your nervous system, because you're aligning with the circadian rhythm and you're decreasing inflammation and toxins and you're getting better sleep and you're getting better nutrition. So it really still comes back to addressing the foundation of health. But nutritional deficiencies, I think, are a particular thing that blood work shines with, because we can see directly. It's like if your vitamin D is low, it's very difficult to bring that up unless you go to the Caribbean and like you're laying out in the sun all day for hours, So we can directly address some of these imbalances. We also have like another way of kind of prioritizing what we do. We call it the therapeutic order. So you could think of it as like a triangle, like a pyramid. At the bottom is the foundation of health, which is detox, nutrition, lifestyle, and mind body. Layer 2 is your organ systems, which is like, if you think about the foundation is like zooming out and seeing the entire picture, the entire organism in an environment. Now we're zooming into the organ system level, which is like smaller than the body, but still at like a macrocosm, right? And a lot of organ systems break down due to chronic stress, chronic inflammation, chronic deficiencies. So those oftentimes need to be addressed and given specific support. And then at the top of the pyramid is at the symptom level. Sometimes symptoms need to be addressed, whether you're experiencing like an incredible amount of pain or like a migraine that's incapacitating, or if you have a serious injury or something, then that is a very local, area that you need to address with a localized therapy. And that's still within the therapeutic order. So it's no one's saying that you shouldn't go to the hospital if you get shot in the chest with a gun, right? You need to save life. It's a specific local problem that's causing the issue, and you need to go address that. That would be at the top of the hierarchy. A lot of functional medicine protocols and supplements are working at the top level. They're just symptom management. It's like, take this for migraines, take this for that, So it's not addressing the therapeutic order of the priority of how we look at things. It's like everything is built on a good foundation. So you have to address those things for long-term healing. Now, sometimes the organ systems can need their own specific support. We can address those simultaneously as we change the environment and change the foundation of health. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't take hormone support or gut support. We give that to people all the time if it's indicated. That only happens on a good foundation. And then the symptom level at level 3 is only used in extenuating circumstances, right? So when we look at blood work, we are analyzing it through that same lens. We're looking at, okay, where has the foundation broken down? And let's make sure that's addressed. Let's make sure the body's detoxified so there's not inflammation, and let's make sure all the nutrient levels are filled. Let's make sure the circadian rhythm is working appropriately. And then the next level would be organ systems. So we look at the gut, we look at hormones, we look at liver. Now, even those should be prioritized because your hormones are downstream of your liver, which is downstream of your gut. So a lot of people that I work with are doing a lot of things downstream of a gut issue. It's like they have a gut issue. They're bloated all the time. I just chatted with one new female client yesterday, and she's having crazy hormonal issues, and she's taking all of these hormonal supportive supplements like progesterone and things, but she's getting pain every time she eats. It's like nothing matters unless we solve that. Because if you're getting pain every time you eat, you're not digesting your food, you're not getting the nutrients that you need, and then you're perpetuating endotoxemia and inflammation that's then going to congest your liver and then make all of your hormones off. So, anytime any person who's dealing with an issue, this is like the art of healing. You always come to the table with a lot of things that can be addressed environmentally, in your blood work. The true art of healing is knowing what's a priority and what order you go in order to address those things and get someone out of the woods. So it's very easy to, if you're a practitioner that focuses on hormones, then your lens is just hormones or your lens is just thyroid. And you're not going to see the whole picture of how that issue developed due to the upstream issues of your liver or your gut, or even the more foundational issues of your mental, emotional, or toxins, et cetera. So that's like, in a nutshell, the way that we think about blood work.
Yeah, I think like you're like a little inspector. You have to go through all these different things first instead of just specializing in one area, which specialization is important. Obviously, there's places where it makes sense, but I think the truly holistic approach that you take is really helpful for people. And so another thing I know you offer is the food sensitivity testing. Everybody has probably once in their life taken some sort of food intolerance test and might have a mixed opinion on what that looks like. But can you talk a bit about your specific process for the food sensitivity testing, what that is and where it comes from?
Yeah. So kind of the standard evaluation process that we do with all new clients is that metabolic blood panel and then a food intolerance evaluation. We call it a food intolerance evaluation to differentiate it from food sensitivity tests that a lot of people are aware of. The vast majority of tests that are on the market are food sensitivity tests, which is basically measuring like IgG antibodies to different food groups. So like Everlywell is a very, very common at-home test. There's a lot of other tests, like big panels that will test.
Isn't it true that those results can change based on what you ate the day before you took the test?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we don't think that those tests are accurate at all. They can change based on what you're eating. They can change based off of your menstrual cycle, based off of the seasons. If you're stressed, if you're sick, because it's basically just a reflection of your immune system. Your immune system is going to produce antibodies to different foods. That doesn't mean that all those foods are literally a problem for you, right? So there's a lot of false positives and false negatives when it comes to a food sensitivity panel when you're measuring those antibodies. The food intolerance evaluation that we do is totally different. The best way to describe it is a enzyme deficiency that you have to certain foods. And this evaluation was actually developed by a naturopathic doctor named Otis Carroll in the 1910s. And the legend has it that Nikola Tesla came to town and helped him to develop the technology that is still used today in order to do the evaluations. So the way that we do the evaluation hasn't changed in 100 years. We use basically biofeedback machines that are completely analog with dials. And we measure the like bioelectric reaction between different foods and in the body, mediated through blood. And I don't know how to describe that, like what that is exactly from like a biochemical thing, a biochemical concept, besides an enzyme deficiency, because basically what it represents is a food category or food combination that the body can't digest well. So when you eat it, it causes problems. You could say it causes problems in your bioelectric field, or you could say it causes problems in your digestion. And we can check someone at birth before they've ever eaten any food and get a result. And that result will not change unless some crazy thing happens, like you need a blood transfusion. So like you're completely radically changing your physiology. The results won't change. So it's not dependent on your immune system.
That's what I was gonna ask, like, so mainstream I was gonna provide a little bit of pushback, and I'm not saying that I
Sure.
disagree with this, but mainstream says your genetics, you're stuck with your genetics, and this is how you have to deal with your genetics when they forget that your environment shapes your genetic expression, like, you can change how your genes are expressed with internal and external environmental exposures. Does that not apply here where enzyme expression depends on your metabolic state and energy production capabilities, which would then impact how you digest certain foods?
I think it does. And what I've noticed in my own life is that my capacity to deal with my own food intolerance has gotten better as I've gotten healthier.
Yeah.
So I can get away with it more, you could say,
Yeah.
right? Or you've increased your metabolic energy, your capacity enough where it's no longer a problem. Now, you could say like, you know, in the modern world that we live in, because of all the stresses that we're under, however you want to describe it, from a practical perspective, I haven't found a case in which someone can overcome it to a point where it would no longer have any impact on them. It always seems like it would just be better to avoid it instead of like going above and beyond to try to increase your capacity so much where it's not a problem. But, everyone has their own like sensitivity to their food intolerance,
Yeah.
their own like capacity to manage it. Where I've just become very practical over the years. It's like people want results. People don't want to like play patty cake in like the theoretical world. And to your point, like I can't explain it. The reason why I love it and trust it is because the historical context behind it is incredible. It's basically been passed down through generations of naturopathic doctors held in like close circles.
Yeah.
And the way that the evaluation is run is measuring something different. It's measuring something that we might not have language to describe. It's like a bioelectrical thing.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the results that I've seen in my own life and in my clients' lives, like it's just absolutely incredible what I've seen continuously when you avoid your food intolerance, which again, like you could think about it as like a source of toxicity
Yeah.
that the body is experiencing constantly. And with certain cases, it becomes very obvious to me when there's like a major food intolerance that's being missed,
Yeah.
especially when someone has done all the diets. They're taking great supplements. They're doing a lot of the right things as far as I'm concerned. Like there's a lot of times someone comes to see me and I'm like, you're doing all the wrong things. But sometimes someone comes to see me and I'm like, you're doing a lot of the right things actually. But there's clearly some toxicity component. And then we find out that there's a food intolerance that they're consuming and the person avoids that and like dramatic results happen. So, the return on investment
Yeah.
is really high. But again, I want to emphasize that like it's important to do the right evaluation. You could do that with food sensitivity tests with the same kind of idea in your head and not get any results because the test is BS.
To give some
So
to give some context, I thought it was super interesting. For me, it showed that I shouldn't combine potatoes with grains.
mhm.
And I naturally don't do that. Like, I thought that that was very interesting. Like, I intuitively don't have sourdough bread and potatoes in the same meal. It doesn't make me feel good. I like to have sourdough bread with like jam and then potatoes in like a separate meal. So I thought that that was kind of interesting. Like looking at my results, it's like, wait, I like actually intuitively don't do that. So it's different than what I've seen before.
Yeah, most people, pretty much everyone that we check will have one primary food intolerance, which is like a group,
Yeah.
and then one combination. And the combination uh, testing, there's like the old school food combining idea where like if you eat certain foods together, it causes digestive issues. And I think there's different opinions about that. Some people think that whole thing is BS. A lot of it is probably from like, looking at pro-metabolic foods. Like a lot of the foods are just hard to digest in general, like beans and nuts and seeds and whole grains and things. But I think most people understand from like a common sense perspective that if you eat an entire buffet of food, like on Thanksgiving, you're going to have some digestive issues. Like it's hard for your body to manage like many food groups all at the same time for a variety of reasons. So, there's also physiologic reasons for that too, like eating lots of starch with lots of protein. I don't give too much emphasis on that. I give emphasis on the food combination and tolerance that we check for, because that is like your particular thing. You don't have to avoid every potential combination issue that might exist. We simplify it and say, this is your particular combination that probably is not going to work for you.
And
To
we
challenge what Ashley said a little bit, you said, like, can't somebody develop the ability over time through improving metabolism? It kind of, the way I see it is you're putting in a roadblock to improving your metabolism by continuing to eat your food intolerance. Because, like you said, Alex, if you have a gut issue, you're not going to have the nutrients needed, you're not going to have the hormones needed. So
Yeah,
I see what Ashley's saying, but then I
no,
also
no.
see how
What I was saying combines both of those things, which is like, especially right here and now, like you removing metabolic breaks and things that you don't do well with is important. But 5 years from now, if you're in a better metabolic state, could your food palette widen
Mhm.
as your health improves? That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying it's a bad idea to avoid, like we say this all the time, like you should prioritize foods you objectively do well with. The problem is many people don't know what foods they objectively do well with, and I think that that's why maybe something like this can help provide some clarity for
yeah.
people, because it's like your
Yeah,
blog post, Alex, like, do you really know what you should be eating, right? There's like hundreds of foods, and then you see all these lists on Instagram of like do's and don'ts, and people are kind of confused.
correct. Um, Yeah, and like I'll take a stand here, and you guys may disagree with this, and that's totally fine. Um, Especially in the pro-metabolic space, I think that there's this idea that like no one should have an issue with dairy. If you have an issue with dairy, it's just your metabolism is broken, but like you'll get there one day, you know? And again, from a practical perspective, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true if you like move to Italy and like in all of those conditions are improved to the point where it's like I'm happy, I'm in love with life, I'm living low toxin, my circadian rhythm is perfect, and I'm crushing cheese. It's
And
no
have like
problem.
the perfect dairy source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like I'm not gonna say like, yeah, this is like a genetic problem that can never be overcome. From a practical perspective, I see that there are these food intolerances that are difficult to overcome and do create that block. And I see a lot of people in the pro-metabolic space that, as far as pro-metabolic nutrition is concerned, is eating a really, really good diet. But like, if you're eating something every day, 3 times a day, that your body has trouble digesting, that's going to create a potential roadblock. Um, so I think a lot of people like because of what Ray said, Ray didn't really believe in like true dairy intolerance. He thought that was just like a defective digestion, a defective metabolism. Um, I don't demonize dairy at all, but it's a very common food intolerance that I see. I'm intolerant to dairy. So, as much as I've tried, it's like if I eat dairy regularly, I start to experience problems. It's easier for me to avoid it and find other ways to consume those nutrients like calcium. So that's just been my like clinical experience.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair.
Yeah.
I I mean, I don't disagree with you. And like I said, I think it's so important to recognize those blocks for yourself. Otherwise, you are just going to be putting in so much effort and wasting so much time without truly moving the foundational pieces, which for you in your practice, you see as being food intolerances as one of those foundational pieces.
But
Yeah,
what
exactly.
but
It's
Sarah,
sorry, go ahead.
wouldn't you say that, like, with people that we've seen through Transform and, like, our course, like, people people are literally looking for someone else to tell them what foods they do well with because some people are so out of touch with what doing well means, like,
Well, that's the
they're
whole
looking for
basis.
the answer of, like, what I should exactly eat, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what the purpose of this whole, like, discourse is that will differ. Like, there are foods that I objectively do well with that Alex doesn't objectively do well with, that Sarah, you may or may not, and I think that that nuance gets lost a little bit, and it's probably the result of, like, there's hundreds of different food production methods out there now, and so, like, an egg isn't an egg, bread isn't bread, dairy isn't dairy, like, there's so many different varying things, and maybe that's playing a role, but also, Alex, like you said, this vitality, life force imprinted on us at birth could also be playing a role in this as well, and like you said, we don't really even know what it is or have a way to s describe it, and there's something kind of unique about that,
Yeah.
and I think that makes people like myself feel uncomfortable because I have an analytical brain of,
You
like,
can't
I wanna
control
know
it.
what it means.
Alex, I have a quick question related to the food intolerance. You said it doesn't, you've seen cases it doesn't change from birth. Did you test your baby?
Yeah. Oh, for
What
sure.
did it show? That's so cool.
Yeah, and we've also tested, so here's kind of where it gets interesting. Again, I just went on a whole soapbox of like genetic materialism is like the devil, but it's not to say that there aren't things that aren't passed down,
Yeah.
right? That there aren't constitutional patterns. Like I'll totally buy into that, of course. So what we have observed, because now there's been basically 4 generations of naturopathic doctors that have been doing this evaluation since the early 1900s. Um, so food intolerances run in families. We've done 3 generations within one family, and it's the same food intolerance. So like the children of 2 parents will be usually one or the other of their parents' primary food intolerance. Um, some families, it's like all the same. So my wife's dairy intolerant, I'm dairy intolerant, my son's dairy intolerant. So we see that there's a hereditary component that's passed down through families. There's also like this ancestral ethnic component. Um, we have a Muslim colleague that was treating mostly a Muslim population. So we did like hundreds of food intolerances for this guy, and this like 90% of the people in that community were either egg intolerant or meat intolerant. Um, we see like Northern European types of people have certain food intolerances. Mediterranean folks have certain intolerances. It's not like always cut and dry. And like as we live more and more in a melting pot, like that
Yeah, we're
becomes like
all we're all mutts now.
yeah, we're all mutts, exactly. So it becomes like less clear. Um, but I think that's also very interesting. And like, the way that I have kind of understood that is with the studies of Weston Price, who up until, the 1930s, there were still pockets of people that never experienced any food outside of their local region.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that wide. I mean, it was diverse in the sense that they were probably eating like vegetables and things that like we've never heard of. But like it was still compartmentalized for that particular region. And I don't know honestly what I feel about evolution at this point. I don't even know what's true and not true. But if we want to buy into the idea that we adapt to our environment
Yeah.
and that we adapted to certain niches around the world, it makes sense that we evolved or developed certain enzymes to digest and process the foods that were in our local region.
Yeah.
Again, that's a theory, so I'm not like hanging my hat on it. I go based off of the clinical results, but if we want to try to explain what's going on there, like that feels like a pretty decent explanation.
And something that came to my mind was there's got to be some like multi-generational trauma at play too. And I know that the word trauma is triggering, but like with homeopathy, for example, like someone could take some homeopathic remedy and it heals a trauma from like their grandma, like great grandma. Like we don't know how that's passed down. And that's part of this like fourth psycho-emotional life force, vitality, surrender piece that I struggle with internally that I need to lean into. And I think it's because we don't have a way to describe it, and that makes us uncomfortable. And so we avoid it, right? And it's okay to not have an explanation for things and to understand that there's actually a lot left for us to discover about the body. Like, for example, we're some crazy amount of water, right? Like we're made up of so much of water and we know nothing about water. Like water stores memory. What? Like what if we're storing memories from our great grandma in water inside of us? There's so much left to uncover, and we should be talking about these things that we don't feel comfortable describing or have like an official Webster definition in the dictionary, because this is how we like expand knowledge and uncover more information. If we stick to this strict Western medicine, vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, if we just stick to that, how can we dig deeper and ever uncover these important things that are clearly showing there because of epigenetics and multi-generational trends that we're seeing? That doesn't necessarily mean genes are all at play, but what if it's this unknown stuff that's being passed down through the life force, through stored memory and water? It's cool, but it's also kind of scary.
We don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like that you're so right. That's a huge part of the surrendering piece.
Yeah.
It's like, we all put Ray on a pedestal, and he had a lot of scientists and visionaries that he like learned from. It's such a small group of people, and it's like, do we think that they know everything? And that's only a tiny fraction of the rest of the world, which seems to be wrong about almost everything. So like, I totally agree with you. I think that it's completely arrogant to pretend like you have everything figured out. And I try to be open with this stuff. Like I've been wrong enough times where I thought I was so right about something, and then I was proven wrong, and I was humbled, where it's like, I better not be like so sure about things. I that's why I take like my own observation, like clinical experience seriously. Cause it's like, if I see something with my own eyes, even if I can't explain it, it's like, that becomes a truth for me. So the food intolerance is a good example where it's like, I don't really know. Like it's this kind of weird esoteric test that was passed down from maybe Tesla over 100 years using this weird machine. And I can't really explain it, but like, I see what happens, which is another thing is like, we've all been taught to like not believe what we see with our own eyes and like feel with our own senses. That's just been beaten out of us with like the whole concept of like research, really, of like, and I'm not saying, I mean, I think we need both, but like the idea that anecdotes and observation is held to a lower level of importance than like a double-blind study that's done with like, the perfect conditions. It takes away the intelligence that everyone has to observe and feel things for themselves. And that definitely, gets to like the intuitive eating thing that you were talking about. It's just hard because we live in this like chaotic information landscape. So we're really cut off, I think, from like our intuitive sense. The only way to really tap into that is to like really be quiet your mind, allow God to speak to you without all the distractions, but like everyone's distracted. So it's really hard to get that clear information.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is what makes your practice so valuable and different, because you are helping your patients go navigate these very complex environments, and you've got some really interesting tools like this food intolerance test and the different labs that you take. So, Alex, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and where they can sign up to have a consult with you for your health coaching?
Yeah. Our website is havenholistichealth.com. I'm on, social media, alexorton.nd, ND naturopathic doctor. So you can schedule a free consult with us through our website or through my social. Basically, the first step is to schedule a consult. So we do free consultations. Anyone can schedule. It doesn't mean that you need to like be sure that you want to work with me. I can kind of give you my thoughts and try to point you in the right direction, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Thank you
We'll
so
have all
much
those
for
links in the description
yeah.
below, obviously.
Yeah, and like Ashley said, we did do the consult and we did the lab work and the food intolerance test, and it was all very insightful. And Alex talked with us beyond that. He really truly does practice what he preaches. He goes into the mental, emotional side. He will challenge you. So I definitely recommend at the very least scheduling that consult so you can maybe feel a little uncomfortable yourself and start to get to the bottom of anything that you're dealing with. So thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Hopefully we can get you back on soon. All right. Thanks, Alex.